friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I've been meaning to do this video for a while, so I'm sorry it's taken me so long, but I get several people that question me about how do you dechlorinate your tap water? Because this is something I used to have to do before we got our setup. You know, we built our little rainwater collection with the Berkey filter setup so that I don't have to worry about fluoride or chlorine in the water. There's many different ways you can do this, but what I want to talk about are the simple, effective ways that anyone can do where you don't have to buy any kind of expensive equipment or anything like that. So we're not going to be talking about reverse osmosis and even the fancy filters that you may need to buy. This is for someone who's just like, I want something that's quick, that I can do right now until I can save up the money to buy the fancy filters and whatever else that you want to get. Now, the way I used to do it was, and I'm not necessarily going to recommend this, I'm just going to explain how I used to do it. I would fill up some glass gallon containers with the tap water, and then I'd simply put a cloth over it and let it sit for several days, because chlorine will evaporate out. Even chloramine in time can evaporate out, but it takes much longer for that. I would go a minimum of 3 days. I would say for something with such a small hole, I would actually say go at least 5 days. Make sure it's also in a well-lighted place, especially if it's getting sunlight, because direct sunlight, UV rays, will also neutralize the chlorine within your water. Now, I do realize that your parts per million when it comes to chlorine in your tap water are really low. However, those of us who are really trying to avoid such things, because a certain amount of exposure over time can cause health issues, on top of the fact that a lot of us like to ferment stuff, so we don't want to use tap water when fermenting, because we don't want the chlorine and the chloramine within the tap water to possibly affect our ferment. So dechlorinating is the way to go. Now, one of the things I can say about the method I used to use, doing it this way, is that I did keep it in a well-lighted area, so I'm sure that did help quite a bit. So having clear containers is going to help when using the evaporation method, because you're combining two things. You're combining the UV light as well as the evaporation, and that's going to speed up the process. But what I recommend you do, if you're going to go with the evaporation method and you don't mind having a, waiting a few days, is to use an open container like this. It's still clear, it's glass, or even a bowl that, something maybe without a handle that will make it easier to put a cloth over. The reason for the cloth is to simply to keep dust and bugs and whatever else may fall in there out of your water, while still allowing good airflow so that the chlorine can continue to evaporate out. So that is one pretty simple method, but it takes time. So for me, I was always rotating several gallons of water at a time. So I had quite a few going. I'd grab the oldest one and then add another jug of water and then just keep rotating it through like that. That way I always had some dechlorinated water ready to go. Now, another method that is going to depend on how you want to use your water, especially if you're going to use it for plant water. This is a really, watering your household plants or whatever. This is a really good method, but I think it would also be good for fermenting, and that would be to add some ascorbic acid. It's a chemical way of neutralizing the chlorine, but using ascorbic acid is also going to be a healthy way. So what you need on that is a teaspoon of ascorbic acid. It's vitamin C is what all it is, to a gallon of water. Now, this might not be the choice for making your coffee, your tea, and things like that. Because it's very likely even that small amount still going to add some tartness to your water that you may not want. But it could be very good for fermenting, plus you're getting that added vitamin C in there as well. So I never tried that method because I only recently learned about it, but it is a good option. Now, one method I would say would be the very best, most simple that anyone can do, but does require some energy, is to boil your water. This is going to remove both the chlorine and the chloramine from the water, and it takes about 15 to 20 minutes tops. Now that to me sounds like a pretty long time to boil the water. I believe you can actually do it in less, but one of the places I came across, that was the time frame that they gave. So the thing about boiling is you're using both the heating method to neutralize the chlorine, as well as the boiling process is aerating, it's circulating the water, and so you're getting both of those happening at the same time. Now, I did try to look more into just aerating because I've heard about using your blender to aerate your water. That's another way you can do it. If you don't want to heat it, again, you're still using energy to run the blender, but I couldn't find anything specific for amount of time that you would need to run your water in a blender in order to get all the chlorine out. Basically, it's, aeration and evaporation go together. So let's say, going back to the container method, if you have your water not only exposed to sunlight and in an open container, but also occasionally go in there and stir it or have a way to aerate it, that's going to speed up the process, and you can probably, I would guess, have it definitely done in a day. But if you just want to forget about it, I would say leave it up to 5 days. But one thing that you might want to consider too is don't leave it too long, because the longer the water is going to sit in an open container and exposed to sunlight, it's also going to increase the chance that it's going to start getting algae growth, which that may not be what you want. So you want to avoid that. So make sure you keep an eye on it. But I just keep coming back to that boiling method. To me, that seems, as far as, again, getting away from like a reverse osmosis and filters, just a simple common man, anyone can do this without having to invest in anything fancy, is using the boiling method. It's pretty quick. Obviously you would, if you're going to use it to ferment anything with, you need to make sure that the water has cooled to room temperature before you use it in fermenting. You do not want it too hot, because if it's too hot, when you add whether it be your fermentation starter or anything that you're going to put in there to get it going, it will kill the bacteria and yeast that you will need to get that fermentation going. So that's really important. Make sure that you allow it to cool to room temperature first. If you are interested in other methods, I suggest you look into like the reverse osmosis, the UV light. You can actually purchase special UV lights. We actually have all of the above. We have so many different ways to purify our water. We don't worry about the chlorine, really, getting rid of that, because when it comes to anything we're going to consume, making coffee, tea, cooking with, drinking, and fermenting with, we're using our filtered rainwater, and we just use the old simple ceramic Berkey filter to do that. But we do still have other methods that will work both for just cleaning the water, purifying the water from contaminants, as well as removing the chlorine. And that would be, again, the UV light. That would be reverse osmosis. We have this whole setup, and I'll show you a picture right here of what our reverse osmosis setup looks like. We've used it a few times. We like having multiple ways of being able to purify our water, and we have all kinds of ways, while still avoiding the fluoride and the chlorine that's going to be in the city tap water. So also keep in mind, I want to point this out too, none of these methods I'm talking about are going to remove the fluoride. So if you live in a place where your city tap water has fluoride in it, and you're concerned about the health issues that fluoride causes, such as killing your thyroid gland, then or at least slowing it way down, then these methods, the boiling, the aeration, the evaporation, these are not going to remove the fluoride. Even some of your fancy filters won't do that. You have to specifically look for a fluoride removal filter, which is often used in conjunction with another type of filter, like your charcoal filter, which, by the way, the charcoal filters or the carbon filters are good for removing the chlorine, and I believe the chloramine as well. So if you are investing in filters, I'll go ahead and put a search down below for the various types of Berkey filters. Again, we just use, I don't even know if they make and sell them anymore. For our rainwater, we simply use the little less expensive white ceramic ones, because we don't need to worry about the chlorine and the fluoride in the water. But down the road, when, you know, because we're stocked up on our filters, if we ever need to buy more, we'll eventually go with the carbon filter that remove a little bit more. But we've been doing really good off our rainwater filtered with the Berkey. But that's a whole nother topic, and I talk about that in a few other videos. So anyway, I do hope that you found this helpful. If you're just, again, the common man not wanting to invest a bunch of money in something, here are some three very simple ways that aren't going to cost you very much. And oh yes, I'm going to go ahead and put an Amazon affiliate link to a search for pure ascorbic acid. That's what you want to look for. You can't just go get a vitamin C tablet and, well, you can, but you know, crush it up and put it in there, because you don't know what other junk you're going to get in there, especially in those cheap tablets that are bound together with a bunch of other garbage and all that. So I recommend pure vitamin C crystals or ascorbic acid. So I'll put that search so you can look through there and then pick out the item that you think has the best price and the best ratings and all that, if that's the way you want to go. I still would recommend having those on hand, because I know I have some for doing other things like making vitamin C gummies, which I have an old video on that I will go ahead and link to down below. But anyway, you can, having different ways that you can purify your water, like I was talking about, or even at least dechlorinate your water, is always a good idea. And ascorbic acid is good for you and has other things that you can use it in anyway. So it's not a bad investment to do it that way, depending on how you're wanting to use your water. Okay, well, I hope you found this helpful. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.